days and play it because only like half of my ladies know it. All right. Well, we are here and we are so excited. This is Michelle Lee. We are here talking about integrating your shadow. What the frick does that mean? I'm so excited to jump in. For those of you listening live, thank you for being here. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Sabrina Victoria. I am the host here at Her Talk Show. If you haven't already subscribed, girl, what are you doing? Hit that subscribe button. These here podcasts are guaranteed to have you thinking differently about life. Let's just jump in.
Get ready, because today's guest is about to change the way you view your world. This is Her Talk Show, hosted by Sabrina Victoria.
If you are here live, welcome. And if you're listening on the replay, make sure you drop into the comments and say hello so we can send you some love. We have had over 500 women grace this stage. I think we're close to hitting 600. I'm going to have to do another count. We are adding another one to the list today. I'm super excited. Michelle Lee, she is an advisor and spiritual mentor to powerful women leaders, CEOs, and executives who are ready to harness their full potential by accessing and activating the unrecognized power of their unconscious mind to create their deeply satisfying, fulfilling, and successful life. Ooh, yes. Serving in the field of personal and spiritual development for over 27 years, Michelle is a highly sought after expert, speaker, and published author in the fields of shadow work, spiritual awakening, women's empowerment, and plant medicine. Ooh, I love that. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you, Sabrina Victoria.
Yes, thank you. I'm so excited to dive into all of the goodness. I love this subject because I don't know a whole lot in this subject.
Yeah.
So when I
It'll
get
be
to
fun
learn
then.
things, I know, right? Sometimes I'm sitting here, I'm like, I know all of this. And I get women on like you were. I'm like, oh, yes. Exciting. So I shouldn't say of course, I do know a little bit about shadow work, but not a whole lot. So you are bringing to us integrating your shadow.
Mhm.
I would love for you, before we jump into the deep end, I would love for you to kind of give us a roundabout of what shadow work is. What does it mean to integrate your shadow?
Yes, yes. You know, there's a lot of talk out there with shadow work, and I think there's a lot of confusion as well. But integrating the shadow is simply the unconscious part of yourself, or the subconscious, that piece that's below consciousness, the parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at, that we've kind of exiled. Right. And doing the shadow work is recognizing that we have that unconscious part of ourselves and acknowledging it, loving it. It's not a bad part of us, right? It's not a bad part of us. That's where people get so stuck, is that it's this dark side of us. And if there's a dark side, it's very, very, very small. And what I teach my clients is that our shadow holds so much of our power, and our shadow is our lightest side. It holds the most power and the most light within us. So recognizing that shadow is a part of us and integrating it, bringing it out of exile, right? Acknowledging that shadow side. It could be several different parts of us, and letting her back in or him back in, and loving that part of ourselves. And when we do that, we harness all of our power. We become whole. We become whole when we are playing in the realm that I am only good and I only want this and I would never do that. It's a lie. We're being, Carl Jung, one of his famous quotes is, I'd rather be whole than good. And it is in that wholeness that we hold so much power. And this is especially true for so many women because we're taught to be good, the good wife, the good mother, the good friend, the good daughter, right? It's being good. And we actually lose ourselves in that trying to meet the expectations of others.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I love what you're saying, as far as I'd rather be whole than good. How powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It really
Who's
is.
who said that again?
Carl Jung.
Carl Jung. Wow,
Hmm.
that's fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. I know you talk a lot about this part of us being unrecognized, unrecognizable. We don't know necessarily where it is, how to find it. How does somebody even begin to do this work?
Well, what happens, what brings us to it is a lot of times we loop. When we discover we're looping in our lives, we can't get past a certain income in our life, or we keep attracting the same kind of partner, relationship after relationship, or we have the same kind of um undesirable experiences in our life, and we can see like, I keep marrying the same guy, he just has different clothes on, right? Or I can't get past $500,000 a year, or $100,000 a year, or $2,000 a month. I just keep, every time I make a little bit more than that, then I lose it, or another bill comes in, or something tragic happens. That's our shadow showing up, because there's that part of us that we're unconscious of that actually feels more comfortable at that income level, or feels more comfortable with the same kind of relationship over and over. So there's that aspect of ourself, that shadow, that continually wants that experience for whatever reason. It likes that experience. So the looping can bring us to shadow work, because one of the number one axioms, I started my training in shadow work through Existential Kink by Carolyn Elliott. And she has axioms. And the first axiom is having is evidence of wanting. So if you find yourself looping with the same kind of relationship over and over, it's an important recognition to say, well, this must be the relationship I want, because I keep recreating it. I don't consciously want it, but there's a part of myself, that shadow self, that gets that is fulfilled by that relationship.
Wow, that is great. So looping, and I
Yeah.
totally get this. I totally get this. And a lot of times I've heard that as like lessons learned, like until you learn the lesson, I guess you would continue looping. Is that true?
Yeah, for sure. And it's really I like the shadow work because it's not like a negative lesson. It's understanding that there's a part of me, like a younger self, that feels familiar. Like, it's common, say we had a father that was an alcoholic, and now we keep marrying alcoholics, right? So there's a familiarity. It's not like, oh, I have to learn this lesson. I'm so dense, I'm on my 10th alcoholic. I'm so dense. It's not that. It's understanding that there's a shadow self, shadow unconscious, not a bad self, not an unworthy self, but just a part of us that feels the most comfortable in that relationship, because at least it's familiar. And it also gives us the opportunity, this is, runs deeper in how our unconscious works, is if we blame ourselves, or if we feel dad didn't love me enough to quit alcohol, we tend to recreate those relationships to give us another chance. Well, maybe this guy will love me enough and choose me over the alcohol. Maybe this guy will choose me over alcohol. So that's the shadow side. And the shadow integration part, the integrating it, is is connecting with that part of yourself and learning what she or he desires. Like, what is it she wants? Oh, she wants her dad to love and approve of her. And if her dad didn't do it, maybe her husband will, or this next guy will. And we can actually meet those needs within our own psyche. We become the source of our own healing. And then we celebrate that part of ourselves. I was just doing this with a client yesterday, right? Celebrating the rush that it gets, that thought, maybe this guy will love me enough to stop drinking, right? Maybe I can change him. Maybe I'm good enough that he'll choose me, right? And there's a sensational rush in the body with the hope of that possibility, right? And that's what that shadow side recreates and recreates. And when you get to the acknowledgement, like, oh, there's a part of me that enjoys this rush, and you celebrate that part of you and stop fighting it, stop judging it, and just saying, oh, look at this. I am being fulfilled and satisfied by these repetitive experiences. And the more you just relax into it and actually allow yourself to enjoy it and celebrate that part of yourself, then you become one with that part of yourself. That's the integration. And then you will see those experiences begin to dwindle. It's no longer necessary. You've recognized the need that was being met by that.
Yes. So there's so much going on in my head right now. The first thing that I kind of want to touch on, because I know, first of all, we have a ton of people watching live. So thank you so much for being here, for
Yay.
hanging out with us. For
Yeah.
those of you that are watching us on the replay, make sure you drop into the chat and say hello. But one of the scenarios that I continue to hear is this thought process of doing shadow work is scary. People not wanting to jump into it because it brings up old stuff. They don't want to think about it. They don't want to. We get in the habit of like just shoving stuff down, just like shove it in the closet, and then it's dictating so much of our life, right? It's dictating so much.
It's running your life. You don't have to look at it for it to run your life, right? When you want to regain mastery, I'm not going to say control over your life, but regain mastery, and build confidence and become whole, then you look at it. And I get it. You know, I run a program called Making Light of Your Shadow, and we're truly alchemizing what we see as darkness, right? Alchemizing it because and it can be fun, right? But we alchemize it, and there is this little bit of time, because the emotions that come up around it there's a lot of shame and guilt. And long before I was doing shadow work, I was working with women in supporting and healing the core wounds, including shame and guilt. So that's one thing I support my clients in, is when we access that shadow, it can feel not so great for a while, you know. And for a while, I mean 24 hours, 48 hours. It depends on how quickly you want to loosen your grip on that identity, right? Because let's use the daughter of an alcoholic, right? And then she finds herself getting involved with alcoholics for decades afterwards. There's an identity to, I'm a survivor, I'm an adult child of an alcoholic, right? And there's a part of us that hangs on to that identity, but that identity limits us. It keeps us from being whole. And the pain really comes from acknowledging that I don't have to be a victim to that anymore. It's really about getting off the victim, hero, perpetrator triangle, too. You're being pulled out of that and being able to look objectively at all areas, at every aspect of your life. You look objectively, you become the observer, and you go, oh, hey, look, I grew up with an alcoholic father, and be able to look at that objectively and actually find the many gifts that came from that, not just the pain. So, right, there's so many gifts that came from that. It defines the work we go into. It defines a lot of positive things too. So the pain and the fear around it is there, and the way I work through it is it's very minimal. It's not minimal, it's temporary, right? Like if you did this work alone, you could very easy to get stuck in the, oh, this feels horrible, I don't want to look at that part of myself. And what helps get people through it is the life you've been experiencing now, even if it's great, if it's the most amazing life, what's on the other side of shadow integration is exponentially greater. The peace, the fulfillment, the satisfaction. And I use those words because our lives, we tend to go after the next goal, that goal, that goal. If I could just get a man who loves me, if I could just hit $1 million a year or $1 million a month. I see people doing that now, and still they find themselves empty. They keep thinking that will fill this hole. And it's shadow integration that fills the hole. It makes you whole.
Yes. I so appreciate you talking about the identity. I know I struggled with that a lot when I was separating myself from my abuse story into the more powerful person that I was. I remember there was like a serious internal struggle where there comes a point in your healing where you have to like make a choice.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
can't be this all powerful and start healing and be connected to your story
And be a
and
victim.
there's like a point where you have to like let go of the story.
Yes.
And you can't lean on those like, well, it's because of this, you can't lean on it anymore.
No, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly. And there's a part of you that's like the part that hangs on,
yeah,
right? But it was wrong that I
yeah,
was abused like that. If I let it go, am I making it okay? Right. And I love that you bring that up because it is so true. And I watch my clients and I do it myself. I mean, in this work, there's this consistent, constant, like next level of shedding these identities, ego dissolution for sure. And when I'm going through a big expansion, it's like, no, but wait, I want to hang on to that. I want to hang on to that story. And then I can feel the lightness of letting it go and the freedom of it. But then I go, wait, no, I want that back. Right. And it's this back and forth until finally, you just surrender to the light,
yeah,
and my power. And I love that you say that because you can't, like you said, you can't be a victim. You can't be a victim over here and be a master of your life over here.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah.
Good point.
What would you say in your own journey, or maybe even using some examples from some clients, maybe of like, what's the first step? Like, we're kind of talking about it, like
Mhm.
releasing that victim identity. What is like a step that somebody who's listening right now, where they're like, they're not getting it, but like they're getting it, that like weird where
Mhm.
you're like, wait a minute here, Michelle, what?
Mhm.
What is a little step that somebody can take to start moving in the direction of releasing that victim mentality?
Well, I tell you, in my Making Light of Your Shadow program, one thing that I do on the very first day is read the book, The Little Soul in the Sun. Are you familiar with that book by Neil Donald Walsh? Are you familiar with Neil Donald Walsh? He wrote the books Conversations with God, and there's like, I don't know, 15 of them. And he
Wow.
has a couple of children's books beautiful. I used to read The Little Soul and the Sun to my children. And it's this parable about the little soul wanting to incarnate on earth. And he's having this conversation with God. So the little soul says, I know who I am, God. I am the light. God says, yes, you are. You are the light. And he says, okay, now I want to experience who I am. I want to experience forgiveness. And God says, well, that is very noble, little soul, but there's nothing to forgive because you are light. We are light. There's nothing anybody could do because everybody is light. And they have this conversation back and forth. And the little soul says, man, I really want to experience forgiveness. Finally, the little soul's best friend steps forward and says, little soul, I will forget who I am to do something so terrible so that you can forgive. Feel that, don't you? So that's why I say our shadow is also our light, because the shadow part of us is that friendly soul. And anyone who we have seen in our life that have done harm to us, in quotations, done harm, have been the most generous individuals in our life. And when we see that, we're no longer a victim.
Wow. That's a children's book.
Yeah.
That seems very heavy, but like, wow. Like
No,
a
it's
good
very
lesson.
beautiful in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so easy to understand. And so that's the first step I take my clients to, is like, let's shift out of this thought that there's an enemy
Wow.
anywhere in our lives.
Wow. Absolutely. I was just having a conversation on a networking call with somebody regarding similar to that. She had mentioned that she wanted to, on her bucket list is comedy. And I said, "Oh my gosh, that's actually on my bucket list too." And she's like, "Well, what would you talk about? What would you share?" And I said, it's kind of cringe. Like, I don't feel like it's anything I can do within the next couple of years. It's maybe like 10 years out. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, what is it?" And I go, my healing journey with narcissism has been so life-changing for me that I find it hilarious now how dreadful I acted, seemed, whatever word you would want to put in there, during that situation. And I look back and I'm like, how the hell? Like, it's funny to me. Like, and we're all still, right? I'm not saying like I'm healed, right? We're still on a healing journey,
Sure.
but I am in such a place of like gratitude for all the stuff, like all of the heaviness, all of the darkness. I'm in such a place of like, thank goodness that happened. Like,
Yeah.
like how awesome is it that that happened, because I am who I am and I do what I do now because of that. And I find it kind of funny that like I picture myself on the floor. I picture myself like crying and screaming. I picture myself in just this state of like sadness, and how I felt as if I let somebody like do that to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just so interesting to me. So figuring out like it would almost be a dark, obviously, humor. But you know what I mean? It's when you look back,
Mhm.
you're like, how did I let them do that? Like, how is that?
Mhm.
Like, if I think of it now and I think of the situation now, I feel like I would laugh.
Mhm.
Like if he said those things to me or was doing those things to me, I feel like at this point in my life, I would just look at him and I would just laugh hysterically. But at that
Right.
point, I wasn't. I was on the ground, screaming,
Right.
crying, dying on the floor.
And there is a part of you that wanted that. That's the
Wow.
shadow. Remember the first axiom, having is evidence of wanting. When you
Wow.
didn't want it anymore, that shadow side, whatever it was, like, this is what I'm worthy of, or this is what I need to do to be worthy, or whatever that story was. That's what I love about the shadow integration is you are always empowered. You are always being fulfilled. Your desires are always being fulfilled. They may be conscious desires, but a lot of times, and especially in that situation, they were unconscious desires. And, I would recommend doing some timeline stuff with that younger version of yourself. And in meditation, go visit her and let her know where you're at now and that she is safe, right? And that she does amazing, right? She moves forward. And another piece I would like to bring forward on the victim piece of it. Now, you being you saw the light. Your life is completely different. Now, this person that you were in a relationship with forgot himself so much that he could relegate that much pain on you. He could create that much pain. Who would you rather be? You or him?
Me?
Right?
Yeah.
Right?
Wow.
Absolutely. So you can have compassion for him because he is so in the dark. He
Wow.
has so much deep insecurity that he
Wow.
has no idea of his light.
Yeah.
And you going through that could still grasp your light.
Wow. That is interesting, 1. 2, you're always being fulfilled.
Yeah. That gives
This
me
is
chills. I
so
have chills
interesting to
again.
me, and there's a part of me that's like, "Michelle, no."
Mhm.
But,
I
like,
don't blame you. I
yes,
know.
yeah, you are right. I can agree with that in, like, I don't wanna agree with you type of way.
I know, right? There's that identity that's
Yeah.
hanging on that
Wow.
says, but I don't always get what I want, right? Like I tried for this and I didn't get it. But when you embrace the idea that you're always being fulfilled, there's a sense of power in that, right? Because I know in I've been a spiritual seeker and student since I was 16 years old, and I'm in my 50s now, right? And so much of that was you can manifest whatever you want. You can just focus on it, feel yourself driving that car, right? You can manifest anything you want. You want that ideal relationship, and yeah, sometimes I could manifest. I'm really great at manifesting homes, but I have sucked up until, my most recent husband. We have a wonderful relationship at relationships. And so what did I do? I was like, man, I must not be worthy. I can't get this right. I beat myself up over and over. And it goes into total powerlessness and stories like, I guess I'm not meant to have it. I guess I'm not worthy of it, all of that. But if you turn it to whatever I have is what I want, even if it's an unconscious, then you have somewhere to go, right? Like, well, who is that part of me? I want to connect with that part of me that doesn't really want a relationship, that doesn't really want, or doesn't believe in it, or whatever. You have a place to go, and that feels empowering. That shifted me so much to hear that, like, you're always being fulfilled.
Wow.
Oh, so I'm always getting what I want. I can't possibly not get what I want. It's only my conscious mind that says I don't want that. Wait, I don't want that.
Wow. Yeah, it is a sense of thinking back because 'cause it's been a second. there was an identity of like, yeah, total victimhood. And the continued abuse continues that story that I'm then allowed to share, talk about, complain about, cry about to, whoever, my friends, my mom, whoever was around. Yeah, because then if I'm not that, then I didn't have any other identity.
Who am I?
So then,
Right?
yeah, it is fulfilling. I was doing it on, you could say, I mean, like what you're saying, on
Mhm.
purpose, because that was the identity that I was in at that time.
Right.
So I had to keep the story going. If there
Right.
was ever a point of stepping up, stepping out, or he stopped, then what?
Mhm. Exactly. That was completely unknown,
Yes,
right?
completely unknown.
Yeah.
Wow, that almost makes my head hurt a little bit. I nee I need to, like, it's almost making me sick to my stomach a little. Like, I need to, like, digest it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
this is part of the shadow integration. You're that headache and that sick to your stomach is an ego dissolution. This is an
Yes.
identity falling away.
Yes. Yeah. Because that feels weird.
Yeah. Yeah, it does feel weird because you probably got a lot of validation
Yeah.
from being a victim of abuse. You probably got a lot of validation for getting out of it,
I
for being
still
a survivor,
I
right?
still
So
do.
so it has really defined you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what's beyond that, right? Like what's beyond? Can you see yourself as a co-creator with him? And how he gave you the greatest gifts to find your strength, to find it within you. He provided that for you.
Can we talk, do we have time? Do you have time? Can we talk on that for a moment, or do you have to?
No, yeah, I have time. Let's talk
Um,
on it.
so he gave me the greatest gift. Yes. I was kind of touching on that.
Mhm.
And I'm having some, when we're talking about, I'm not a doctor. He's not diagnosed as a narcissist, right? It's just like
Mhm.
narcissistic behaviors is what we're calling
Mhm.
this. A narcissist would take that as a gloating, like, "You're welcome."
Mhm.
That
Can
kinda
you be okay with that?
yeah, that kind of irritates me.
Right. Yeah. And when you're fully healed, you can let him have that.
Okay.
So what is it about, there's and the ego dissolution, believe me, I'm so aware of this. There's a righteousness, right? When he's the bad guy and you're the good one, and you're the
Yeah,
victim and he's the bad guy, you're attached to that version of
yeah,
him. And so there's a righteousness, I'm right, he's wrong,
yeah.
and allowing him to somehow think he was right in it, that it served you, is that righteousness. It's that little bit of ego that's stuck in there. So
Okay.
it's like, am I willing to be with him feeling like he gave me a gift? I mean, people with narcissistic tendencies are going to feel that way anyway. Right? He's going to feel that way anyway, whether you agree, whether you align with it or not. You're not preventing him from feeling that. But the truth
I'm just double validating it.
is,
Um, yeah, I just recently, like, literally recently, Michelle, like within the last 45 days, um, have been on a handful of podcasts, and I have openly said, which I kinda said it here even with you, that I'm grateful.
yeah.
And it feels like I know, right? Because I'm on my journey, and I know. So there's like a knowing and a feeling and a certainty that I'm going through right now. So, like,
Mhm.
I know, like, I conceptualize it, but it still like feels weird here to
Yeah.
like, and I guess that's probably the stripping of the ego, like what you're saying.
That part of yourself that has fully identified with being his victim, right? That feels that has gotten so much identity from that. And so, part of the shadow integration work is also parts work, and talking with that part of yourself and letting her know that being a victim isn't serving her anymore. Like, she can have a new purpose in your life. Or maybe she goes off and she's in a spa. She's in a perpetual spa day, being so nurtured. She's not a victim anymore, right? She's being so nurtured, and she's getting what she needs and desires, and so that you don't have to identify with that part anymore, or not regularly. I mean, that part, we have many parts that live within us. We are multifaceted individuals, and being able to communicate with those parts and recognize when they come up, oh, there's my victim, but I have a prover part. I have a part of me that just wants to freaking prove to everybody, right, how good I am. She's my prover, and she likes to run the show. I can prove I can run faster on the treadmill. I can prove. And so when she pops up, it's like, oh yeah, here she is. And I get to talk her through that, we're good. We don't have to prove anything to anyone or ourselves. So I have the victim too, all of that. It's just recognized when they pop out. But what we have grander than that is our true self. And our true self feels connected, curious, compassionate, calm, right? There's all of these great, wonderful characteristics that is our true self. And you could actually look at your past partner with curiosity, like, oh, how did he get that way? Right? Like, what wounding is he carrying that he needs to harm other people?
So good. This has been absolutely wonderful. Thank you
Good.
so
It
much for
has.
sharing so much information. We still have a ton of people watching live, so thank you for
Yay!
being here.
Yes, thank you.
Michelle, obviously, there's so many people that are resonating with what you're saying. Obviously, we're getting a really good idea of what you do and who you help. But if you could do me a huge favor, if you could share with us exactly what you do, who should be reaching out to you? Who
Mhm.
do you help?
I help anybody who is feeling stuck, right? Like, stuck in that victim, you find yourself looping. A lot of the clients that I work with are super successful women who keep climbing that ladder and finding no satisfaction, no fulfillment, right? Doing what the world has told us we need to do, and we're great at it, but we're not happy. So I work with women that way. I have one-on-one coaching. My Making Light of Your Shadow is often the first step for some people, which is a group program, which will be starting in January. But before that, there's private coaching. So anyone who's like so tired of spinning your wheels and looping and being stuck in these stories that aren't serving you anymore, and you're ready to break through that.
Fantastic. I'm putting up I know your website is under your face, but I'm putting it up so it's a little more legible. The
Good.
SophiaMysterySchool.com. And where can people find you? Where do you predominantly hang out on social media?
Facebook. I have a private Facebook group. It's facebook.com/The Sophia Mystery School.
Yes, very nicely done, my friend.
Thank you.
Well, this has been an absolute delight. For those of you listening live and resonating with Michelle, make sure you reach out to her. Website is thesophiamysteryschool.com. Facebook, same. We love to
Mhm.
connect people here and on this platform in order to make sure we continue to rise. Closing thoughts. How would you like to wrap this up?
Mm. Don't fear your shadow.
Mm,
That's where your power is. That's where your next level is. That's where your greatest light truly is.
absolutely. Can I ask why it's called the Sophia Mystery School?
Sophia. Sophia is the divine mother, the creator of all.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
For
Yes. Be
real? So
Sophia,
people who
feminine wisdom.
wow. Oh, that's so nice. I was not
Yes.
expecting that to be the answer. I apologize for not knowing that.
Oh, no need to apologize. Thank you for asking. The Sophia Mystery School, where the mystery is you, right? The divine feminine, the all knowing wisdom of what's held within us underneath that shadow.
Absolutely. Well, this has been great, Michelle. I so appreciate you. That brings us to the end of yet another incredible episode of Her Talk Show. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. Thank you for
Thank
sharing
you.
um, your insight and inspiring us all. To our dedicated listeners, those watching live and on the replay, thank you for staying with us until the very end here. Remember to follow, like, and share before you click away. Once again, I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I invite you to join our amazing community, Her Nation, where we continue to uplift each other by having amazing conversations just